Thank you. A brief introduction. So my name is Ben. I've been in the IT industry for probably close to 20 years. So I started as a developer and worked myself pretty much around the Microsoft stack. And I think during the SharePoint days, I was a SharePoint consultant, and until Microsoft decided they don't want to use that as a development platform. Also done quite a few dynamic CRM projects. I guess along the way, I transitioned into solution architect, and I see it's a really rewarding journey. However, the transition isn't quite it's quite a different. Like I always thought, like as a developer, you kind of always want to make the call and working as a architect, but essentially the role change. So you probably want to park your technical skills for a while, like when you want to do the transition, which I'm going to detailing that. Normally, I only get like 25 or 30 minutes because I'm getting 50 minutes. So I'm also going to share another part, which is kind of, I guess, a summary of my journey. So the first bit is from a geeky developer to solution architect. And the second part is from a solution architect to a trusted advisor. And the third part, which is I'm currently working on, is from a trusted advisor to a business partner or business leader. So hopefully we'll kind of feel free to ask any questions, and then we can turn this into a kind of an interactive session. So any talk need to have a theme. So my talk theme is anyone can become a solution architect, because I've done this talk for over the years for quite a long for a number of times. A lot of people approach me to say, hey, how can I transition to a solution architect? I see the biggest barrier is not your skills. It's not your technical skills. It's not your soft skills. The biggest barrier is your mindset. So you have to believe you can become a solution architect, which through my talk, I'll show you. Because for me, solution architect is a professional problem solver. I'm sure you're already solving all the problem on a daily basis. So you already have that transferable skills. If you book a holiday, you go to booking.com, you already start comparing all the costs and a lot of that sort of matrix. You're already making that decision or try to having that critical thinking and problem solving skills. So you already have that skills. You just need to trust yourself to be able to apply those skills in your daily job. So today my talk is really simple, right? So I'll tell you why I want to become a solution architect, and maybe you need to think about like why you want to become a solution architect, and then what solution architect really do, and how you can become a solution architect. So why I want to become a solution architect, I kind of started that a bit in the introduction, is when SharePoint was hot, like when I say it's hot, it's like really in demand. I remember the SharePoint conference I ever get to, like I think one of the speakers mentioned if SharePoint as a software is a standalone company, it will rank on the top 10 in the world. Also really good. I think any SharePoint developer back then? No? That's probably indicate how dead it is now. Back in the day, SharePoint's really hot. A lot of companies hiring, like saying, like, if you got SharePoint skills, we need you yesterday. So that's how sort of in demand it is. But then I was pitching to one of the manager, which I'll show you in another photo. Back then is insurance company. I said, you need to do this in SharePoint. It's really big. He said, well, SharePoint's dead. I said, why? And he brought me into a Gartner. Anybody know Gartner? So it's a sort of independent research company. So he brought me into a research meeting. Like that guy, I still remember his name, called Bill. Bill said, SharePoint as development platform is dead. I was just pretty much crashed, I think, around after that meeting. And he explained why, and he said, well, Microsoft doesn't really have a plan, and they don't really, it's very hard to move this into cloud. Back then, it's all try to move this as SaaS. I think after probably 10 years, or probably not more than 10 years, I think his prediction is right, or Gartner's prediction is right. But back then, you know, like all my hard work, you know how hard it is to learn all the SharePoint skills. Like the reason it is in demand is no developer want to learn SharePoint. It's just so hard to work with because just not a developer first platform. So it's just so hard to work with.
What's your anagram of ECM?
ECM is Enterprise Content Management. SharePoint is part of it.
Enterprise
Content Management.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I was crashed. So what I need to do is I either need to pick up a new skills or learn some new platform, or I need to pivot. So I thought back then this is a crucial decision, so I need to make. So I call my mentor. So he's the manager I worked for quite a long time. I trust him, and I think you based on my experience, you need to have a mentor. Like you need to have someone that maybe 10 years in terms of career, 10 years ahead of you, right? So he has seen everything that you're going to experience. He will try to make sure that you do things you don't want to do, but maybe you should do, because that's a good thing. Because if you talk other developers back then, I was talking to a lot of developer friends, they'll be like, why you want to transition to solution architect? If they ever going to do a layoff, you'll be the person in the line, and a lot of that sort of different sort of voice. But I trust my mentor and had a chat with him, and he said, well, basically summarize that in the next one, or probably in later slide, is he mentioned technology change fast and leadership change lives. So basically, you need to build your career based on skill set that is long-lasting, high-paying. You can't base a lot of your career based on a technical skill. You can base on that for a short duration, kind of your technical sort of lens, right? But you have to keep learning. And there is a chance, like me, like when a major tech company going to kill their product, then you have to you go to almost the ground floor. You have to start to learn some new things. Back then, I did learn, because when you do the transition, you still have to keep up with your technology, right? So I pick up like dynamic CRM as sort of my backup, because when doing SharePoint, there's a lot of integration between those two platforms. So I do pick up that one. So I'm still quite well immersed in tech, but I start sort of putting some plan together to try to transition to learn some new skills. It's not about just getting that role. It's about the solution architect as a platform for you to be able to learn a lot of new skills that you're going to have. That's what I kind of think. The company probably wouldn't going to tell you this, but I kind of to say, hey, I might just want to show this to say, think about it. Are you in a technical rat race? Because if you reach that, poor dad, right, they talk about the rat race. So it's kind of you earn money, you pay the bill, and all of that. But with technology, what I find is every project work on, when that project finish, if that project is more than a year, after that project finish, then I think around like half of my skills is kind of gone. Like I have to learn some new skills, right? It's not very good use of time, or it's not a very good investment in terms of that. But that's what is the landscape in tech, right? So you have to do it to make sure you keep your current job. But you need to start thinking about it. Like back then, I was told myself, I need to start thinking about, I want to build something that's going to be long lasting. And that's the slide, right? Those are the human skills. Like I also told some of my friends that because the SharePoint sort of saga or SharePoint is dead, I had my AI moment 10 years ago. Like a lot of people to say, hey, AI going to replace my job and all of that. I'm telling you, learn some human skills. Be really good at talking to human, and be really good at human skills. And those are the skills that going to be what I mentioned, long-lasting, high value and high paying. Those are the critical thinking you need to have. It used to be like you need to do research and you need just listen to a Microsoft consultant or their vendors consultant. Now, by the AI design, you're going to have two opinions. You can ask the Microsoft consultant, you can ask what Copilot thinks, right? You're going to have two different design. Trust me, your executive or your stakeholder you work with already doing that, because I've been in design meetings and one of the, I know this very non-technical stakeholder start bringing up very technical concept to say, have you thought about that? Why your design hasn't include this? when I had a conversation with her, like off the meeting, they're already using Copilot. Make sure that you're using the Copilot, making sure that you don't use it to causing data issues, like you don't want to leak the data, but make sure that you use that in a safe environment. And that's what I mentioned, those sort of skills. And a lot of those skills, like when I was a developer, I was like communication skills. I'm pretty good at this because I communicate with my Scrum Master, project manager. If you work in that space, like there's a false perception around how the communication skills. Like sometimes it is the other person adapt to your level that make you comfortable. A lot of times when you're communicating with the challenging stakeholders, you normally don't feel comfortable communicating in that way, but because you have to in order to get a outcome that you need. So you kind of adapt to that level. So I probably getting that false sort of the feeling that I'm good at communicating, but in reality, it's actually my project manager or Scrum Master adapting to my level to make myself comfortable. So you really need to be able to kind of try to practice those skills, try to practice how you're going to talk to a very aggressive stakeholders. And it's not a nice experience, but you need to be able to do that. And the job ad doesn't help, because a lot of the job ads are talking in a way that they use what I call a very vague and big language. You normally wouldn't hear some of those, like adapt to attitude, some of this, right? So adapt to the correct technical altitude of the audience, right? So you normally wouldn't talk about this, but they're kind of putting those job ads in such way. Really, don't get intimidated about this. You can do it. Really, let me to translate to that. So a good architect really doing three things. You define the problem, and you research all the possible solution, and you recommend the best solution based on your objective criteria you have. So and along the way, you need to learn how to communicate, right? So once you've been in the architecture industry for a while, you kind of not really doing the technical skills a lot anymore. You kind of more in that sort of relationship business rather than technical business. So your kind of impact is valued around how many connections you can build by being able to communicate in that level, right? You be able to talk to a developer, communicate in the technical language, but you can also talk to an executive, try to having an executive summary around why they should invest in maybe Power Platform, right? So it's about it's about doing these three things. It's also about how you're going to communicating with a different level of stakeholders. I think with AI, you can try that. Like you can try to tweak. This is what I try to communicate, and you can say this is what I try to communicate with developer. How you can frame up this sentences and saying you can say this is what I try to talk to my CTOs or CIOs. I think AI definitely help in that regard. That's what is a key attribute I think a solution architect need to have is we are a translator, right? So we translate a business objective or business language into IT and vice versa. We also doing trade-off, which I'm going to touch on when I talk about the well-architected framework, because the well-architected framework offering the roadmap around, I think for a lot of the wannabe architect, they give you a lot of the roadmap and blueprint around what you need to study and what you need to describe your solution. But be able to do the trade-off and balancing all of this is really what a good solution architect stand out. A solution architect also need to have a broad understanding of technology. I guess we are here mainly for the Power Platform, but I encourage you to really expand your technology breadth, to look at the Azure, look at some of even the competitors' technology, right? Look at how they innovate, how they actually doing things, how they describe the solution. Really going to help you. Guess what? Your executive are doing that because they are not only looking at Microsoft stack. They will look at other things, right? Be able to understand the wide range of solution will help you to having that conversation. And this is the Power Platform, architect Power Platform. I probably wouldn't get into, so you can probably sense this is not a technical talk. This is more about share my story. So Microsoft had a lot of documentations in this. I'm sure that you can go into that. But as I mentioned, the real challenge is around the trade-off. Is some of the requirement, especially around the well-architected or solution architect, sometimes referring those as a non-functional requirement, are kind of mutual exclusive in a way. Like if you want the best security, you will sacrifice experience. Take for example, today's the Black Friday? Is that right? Yeah. If you work in retail, if your if your security manager say, hey, Ben, you need to put a multi-factor in when they check out, do you want to put that one in? You know what I mean? That's a trade-off. If you're in a bank, I think it's okay. That's for me.
There's a new bank and BNZ so about take it slow, and it's all about big daddy inside the apps, take it slow, and some annoying hackers and stuff. And it's along that concept, right? They're trying to make that whole login process seem good, but it's probably annoying to people.
Yeah. I guess in certain industries, certain scenario, security build trust, which is good customer experience. But if you are in retail, I can guarantee you that if you put multi-factor, you might have 20% loss of sale. That means you might having a lot of money loss. So it's becoming a business discussion, right? So we identify there is a risk, and we can document that risk. As long as maybe the retail manager or the CEO sign it off to say, hey, I want that 20% sales, but in order to get that 20% of sales, I'm quite happy to sign off the security risk. So a lot of those are not black and white. And I think that's where solution architect really add value, because you're going to deal with a lot of different stakeholders, strong-minded stakeholder who want to safeguard their area, which is perfectly fine. But if you work in that security manager, you definitely don't want your system to be down or breach or data loss, right? But sometimes you want to have a sensible discussion around how much this risk is and what is the real cost of implementing that security control. In certain company and certain project, it is okay. But as I mentioned, in retail, and a lot of times, probably not okay, because you're going to have a really dollar impact on some of the things. But on the other hand, if you're in retailer, if you're the PCI DSS compliance, you all know, right? If they say, well, we want you to implement this, you have to, because you don't want to lose the ability to take credit card payments. So that's almost like whatever that costs, we have to make it compliant. So there's another sort of different area. Another thing I want to point out is this is the well-architected framework. Got 5 pillars. I'll give you like 20 seconds to look at it. I'm going to show you the Azure one in a 20 seconds. There's a difference. There's no price for the different file. That's quite interesting. This is the Azure's well-architected framework. Can anyone point it out? What's the difference? There's only one pillar that has difference. Yeah. So you will find that in the well-architected Power Platform, it has cost in it, but sorry, it doesn't have a cost in it, and in Azure it does. I think we all in the we all in the Power Platform. We all understand that we kind of our charge is pretty transparent. It's per user per month, right? Based on the capability you choose. But when you go to Azure, those are not that easy. And most of the project I worked on, especially, I think I just talked to I think Sarah before, especially when they start agile, when they try to move to the cloud, like incrementally move to the cloud, the cost will not incrementally increase. The cost will be exponential increase if they haven't put their plan together. So I think they want the architect to actually look at the cost optimization, is because it will cost a lot of money to move the cloud if you haven't designed your system by the cost optimization. You just can't do lift and shift. If anyone to say like we want to move to cloud and want to lift and shift, you point to that pillar to them to say, well, do you want to have a cost explosion, or do you want to have a cost under control, making sure that they spend time to do that properly? I think when we work in the Power Platform, just in the Power Platform, that's quite transparent. But I guess most of the project probably not just sitting in Power Platform. It has other areas. As a solution architect, you really need to having that balance in view. And also work in government sector that the cost is, we used to get told off by putting cost in design because they say, well, that's not your remit because you are only technology, and there's definitely like a business case or business review. But then later on, they ask us to add, they call the consequential OPEX. It's really because they have a lot of cost blowout in the government sector, because government sector are rich in CapEx and doesn't really have a lot of OPEX. And we kind of had a joke about it. They have a cloud first strategy, but they don't have any OPEX to pay for that. So they have a lot of money to build stuff, but then like a lot of that operational cost that cloud actually is sort of changing are in that bucket, and they literally don't really have a lot of money on that. So do a recap. I hope I haven't described anything that scares you to say, hey, the solution architect, this isn't for me, right? I truly believe anyone can become a solution architect. It's really about try to understand the problem, try to come up with options. You can ask ChatGPT now, and then do a realistic sort of review based on engaging with the right stakeholder, and if there's a conflicting sort of views or conflicting requirement, try to make sure that you get them to talk about it and try to find the right compromise. So really, you can see I'm big on finding a mentor, because I truly believe not only like anyone can become an architect. The best way of doing anything is you find the person who already did what you want to do. It's kind of like if you want to climb Mount Everest, right? You wouldn't just do a research and just work on yourself and then go there. You find a guide, or you talk to somebody who already done that, and try to ask them who is the best touring company or who's the best guide you can hire in order to achieve that. I believe in career it's the same. It's sometimes we forgot about we can actually ask. You can ask that person, because I got a quite ambitious goal to become a CIO one day. I've been just try to add CIOs on LinkedIn, just try to say, can we have a coffee and can you share your journey and see if I can learn something. So I've been, it's a numbers game. If you add enough CIOs, they will get you a coffee, I think. Yeah, which I did. I've been talking to CIOs already.
Yeah, that's the question I was going to have. Yeah. How have you gone about finding a mentor? Obviously, the rest is reaching out to people, right? Talking to people.
I think, at least for the career of now, I've been really lucky, because I've been getting mentors before I even ask. So my first mentor is my first manager, who hired me twice. First as a grad, I think he started mentoring me like straight away, and then we've been in conversation, and he kind of, a lot of the career I'm having now is actually following his journey or his advice. Because when I start as a developer, I had a chat with him. He said, well, maybe you should look for public sector. The pay isn't great, got lots of projects, lots of money to spend, and they don't hire good people. So maybe you can start there. So that's what I did. So I started there, and I'll in my later presentation, I'll show all the mistakes I made during the time in order to get better. So now, because I had a goal, right? So I'm actively trying to engaging with that level. And also, if you're having the same aspiration, you should go to the CIO conference. If the company doesn't pay for it, there is they call it emerging leader forum. If you can apply, and if you get in, you get free entry for that conference. It's a really good conference. You'll be able to talk to a lot of different CIOs. I've been invited to a dinner this year. I'm just sitting with a CIO just next to me, and she shared a lot of things. She said, well, if you keep working as an architect, you're probably not going to get the CIO role. So she shared a lot of her insight around like what sort of tweak or what sort of the next step I can do. So so try to find what you want to achieve, and then you can look for like who already done that and try to talk to that person. LinkedIn is the best, I think, because if you send an email, it's weird, like if you don't know that person. But if you send somebody a message, not in the sales tone, because everybody wants to talk about themselves. So just send a message to say, I really like admire the career you have, and can you share like what you have done, like giving them an opportunity to share their story. And most of people do want to share their story, because I think maybe in that level they're quite lonely, like they can't share anything to anybody. I think, yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, find a mentor, and you can do a gap analysis, right? As an architect, we're doing current state, target state, do a gap analysis, put a roadmap. For your career, you can do the same thing. I'll show you how you can do using AI, and broaden your technical perspective. I mentioned that, and also master technical leadership and social skills. And also don't take no for an answer, because I got my first job after I got rejected. And then I send a feedback. So, can you give me some feedback to help me improve? Then guess what? They say, well, we forgot why we reject you. And they take me for a second round interview and they get in. And I asked my manager, who become a mentor, right? Well, he told me is, well, there's two people who have multiple offers and he didn't choose the company. And I have 2 vacant roles, and you are the only one who sent a email requesting for feedback. The minute I got your email, you already get in, and the rest is probably we just follow a HR process, which is funny. And another thing is, this is what I applied for a conference, not this one, early this year. I also got a rejection letter. 2 weeks later, I also get in. I didn't ask. I assuming one of the speakers couldn't make it, so I might be the only one who. I did ask for feedback, so I get in. And this is what I got in the book, right? You don't want to do too much trial and error, because like you don't want to waste time, or some of the mistakes you make in the career could be costly. So just find somebody, learn. Later on, I'll also mention like you don't need to learn. We all learn from mistake. You don't have to learn from your mistake. Your mistake is too costly. Learn from other people's mistake. This is what I use for gap analysis. You can use AI. So using that prompt, giving them as much information as possible. You can do it in Copilot or any AI tool you have, right? So just ask them. They generate great personal development plan. I used to remember back in the days have to do my own PDP. Like my English wasn't that great back then. I have to do a lot of research. But now you can just ask ChatGPT. They generate great plan. You can also tailor that to say, please tailor the development plan to the New Zealand market and context. And this is only kind of a half of that, right? So it's not kind of finished, because I can only fit so much in the page. You can do that. There's some sort of back and forth conversation that you can have. Do that. Like if you might not want to become a solution architect, you might want to become some other roles that you want to get into, but this give you a kind of like a blueprint, and then you can take that to have a target question when you find the right mentor. And that's another thing. Like that's what I did. Ask for ChatGPT. Like they can even generate a plan, like short-term plan, long-term plan. Yes. And another thing, what I find is tech people know how to learn technical skills. So if you want to become a solution architect, you don't need to learn any technical skills, or even you do have a gap in the area, you know how to fill in that gap. What I find is most of technical people, including myself, are struggling to learn soft skills or those human skills. And that's how I learned it, right? So I started the Solution Architect podcast in 2017. as a way to practice my English. Because back then, my manager hired me to say, Bing, you need to improve your English a bit, because when you present your design, it's a bit awkward. Can you maybe work on something on that? And he willing to pay me to do a Toastmaster course. I think that's another weird way. Yeah, but I got a 2-year-old daughter back then. I said, I don't want to sacrifice my own time. She said, well, you're young, do some like podcast or YouTube. Like he recommended some of the podcasts to listen. So I listened to it, and then I start doing my own podcast. That's how my presentation journey starts. Then before, he also mentioned you can try to speak in conference to practice your presentation skills. Before I had this podcast, nobody gave me any reply. After I had this podcast, I think the North Shore.net user group, I think Rory, he's the first one who gave me the opportunity. I think he probably didn't listen to my podcast. It's not as good, but he said, oh, this guy probably knows something because he had a podcast. So last year, I also started a podcast because I'm mentoring a lot of university students to get into their first job. So if you just open invite, if you want to be a guest, I'm very happy for you to be on the show, and I'll get a student. We can co-host a podcast together on that. And also, once you having all of this,
Is that QR code the same as the one?
No, so it's a different. So that's the other podcast. Yeah. So when you're doing this presentation a while, like you've probably seen, if you've seen me once, like you don't have to see me the next time because all the same. So this is the meetup I went to, and guess what? I'm not a speaker, but I end up to be a speaker. They're like, oh, our speaker doesn't turn up. Who want to give a talk? I say, yeah, I'm ready. Got slides in my PC, everything all set it up. Done this like millions of times.
AWS one.
Yeah.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. That's when I think just after COVID, I wasn't planning to do a lot of talk. Because if you look at my podcast, I hasn't been active until recently because my last job was a contract job, and I need to apply for a job. I need to build connection. That's why I've been really active recently. And once you've been talking, you're kind of having those conversations in your mind. You come up maybe some great ideas. I was having a chat with my friend Andrea. We did a podcast because she works in more of a software architect. I'm a PowerPoint architect. That's what she's referring to. We had a conversation to say, what you guys do? And I basically we had a chat on LinkedIn, and I turned that into a post. It's all AI. Guess what? I got, like, if you look at it, 155,400 views. So you can become famous, right? So if your kids to say, I want to become a YouTuber, say you can work in IT, you can also become an influencer. So this is really, anyone can become an architect, because at its core, we just solve problems. We're already solving problems on a daily basis. And you just need to take that transferable skills into the workplace and practice those skills. How many time? Why I have?
25 minutes.
25. That's fine. That's my second part. So normally my presentation will finish. I think you might have enough. This is, once you become a solution architect, then your true journey starts, because you suddenly find, like, in the meeting that you don't have any technical support. You are the one who's supposed to know everything, and you are the one that front facing the customer or front facing all the internal stakeholders. And that's what I mentioned, that you don't have to, you have to learn from your mistake, right? But you don't have to learn that from yourself. That's what I find. That's why I want to share all my mistakes that I had in the probably last 10 years as a solution architect. I'll go there very quickly. The first one is, I think after I become a solution architect, I got really excited because I want to become the guy. Like, I'll make all the decisions. I'll just talk to you about all my blueprints. And guess what? Like, nobody approved my design. Nobody liked me, I think, back then. Yeah, I know. So that's a mistake. And also, people, like, especially if you come in as a migrant like me, the English not your language. Good communicator is not like something you see what I'm doing in a work or corporate context for most of the time. Most of the time, good communicator means listening, and ask great questions, not presenting. Most of the time, especially when you work with your executive or quite a key subject matter expert, you want them to talk. You want them to talk until if they really get bored or something. You want them to talk. You just want to listen, ask great questions. That's most. yeah. And a lot of those people I find, not a lot of them, some of them are really quiet. Or maybe they've gone through so many transformations, so many IT projects, they just don't bother to talk. Maybe you seen those stakeholders. What I want to do, some of stakeholder, the trick I did is maybe just deliberately make a mistake. They can't tolerate mistake. When you make a mistake, they'll say, this is wrong. How can you get this wrong? And until you ask questions, and then once they start talking,
Why do you think
yeah. So yeah, because if you've asked them, like, can you tell me how this works? Like, sometimes they just don't want to respond it that way. So that's another trick I did. Another thing is, we are not a decision maker, or at least when you work as solution architect, you are an influencer, right? So that means you can't just try to force a decision or try to think you can make all the call. You have to, once you get your design, you really have to turn that into, I wouldn't want to say that's a sales pitch, but kind of in that way that maybe adjust how you're going to communicate with that person, because you want to get their buy-in. And that's the key thing, right? So you want to influence them to make the right call. And also when they mentioned about stakeholder mapping, right? So you, one of the basic one I normally do once I get this project, first I try to sync up with my project manager what your expectation of me and all of that. Then we try to have a good chat with a good project manager to say, hey, who do you think actually on our side and who isn't? And how can we actually, because a lot of that incorporate, as long as the one that against you didn't make a lot of noise and you got the numbers, your project will get approved. So you kind of want to get a sense of that, especially for some sort of high profile project, right? So you get a sense, and then you can see like who are the key person we need to influence them. Then your design need to adapt to not the one that who's your project sponsor, right? So they already approved your project because they sponsored the project, but you want to tailor the design more for the project who will make a lot of noise. So try to make that make sort of understand that dynamics. And also, this is probably also in the gray area is because we are not decision maker, and decision maker are depending on the company, they got different power structure and different sort of governance processing to go through. There are internal company politics that are in there. I believe as a good influencer, you probably don't want to participate, or because you don't have power, right? You probably can't participate. But as a good solution architect or influencer, you need to understand that power structure, especially for internal architect, right? So when I work at Datacom, I don't want to participate. I don't even want to understand, because your internal architect, you sort it out. I'm providing the technical design. But if you are an internal architect, a lot of your role is actually to understand the power structure, understand who are friends and who are kind of having a bit of power challenge within the company. Because at the end of the day, if you don't understand this, how would you actually influence the right people to make that right call? Like maybe you can't influence your certain executive, but you want to know like who he trusts. You maybe talk to that person and try to present your solution and get them on your side, and he can actually do all the talking on behalf of you. So this is probably the area I not enjoying. But I think as a good solution architect or as a good consultant in general, you need to understand, or you need to spend some effort on that. I got burned really badly, like especially when I get a handover of a project, they'll be like, here's the requirement, do get the design in a week. I've done that and get burned because I didn't talk to the real customer. A lot of that requirement get outdated. Maybe the stakeholders already changed. Making sure you talk to the real customer. That means if you get hand over a project halfway through, try to say, I just want to talk to them to verify all the assumptions and all of that still in place, even a half an hour conversation. If not, you can still go to sit in the business, all flexible working, right? You can just sit with the business and figure out who knows this stuff, and you can figure out like who's the real customer is, and try to buy them a lunch or have lunch together and work through. And if there's an alarming bell, and then that's the time you need to talk to your project manager. Don't just make the assumption that, guess what? Your project manager normally would on your side, but when the project didn't go well, he'll probably just say, well, Ben is the architect. Well, I don't really know the technical skills, and he's supposed to validate all of these assumptions and all his fault. Guess what? This is just human nature. It's common. So you don't want to be in that situation. Let's try to use your own way to clarify all the assumptions. Like your project manager will naturally would blame you if you didn't. But if you ask him, can you organize a meeting? He'll say no. Well, we don't want to spend the time, and there's no budget and all of that, but you still have to. This is what I mentioned, broaden your skills. If all you know is a very narrow scope, right, in terms of technical capability, all your design will look very like, if all you know is C# and all the problem looks like a C# problem. I guess this is later on I become the solution architect team leader. So this is what, when you step up to more of a leadership role, making sure you be a leader, not a boss. What I mean is, I think John Maxwell make an analogy really, really well, is a leader like a tour guide, a boss like a travel agent. The difference is a travel agent never done that or never been to that place. He'll just do all the work for you and say, yeah, go to do it. And this is how you go to do it. A tour guide is actually he has been there, done that, and he'll show you how he will do it. And then you can sort of follow him and then make incremental changes to suit your style. Another thing is the art of saying no. Like, this is probably more for the internal architect, is I got into trouble to say no because my manager said, Ben, you are a solution architect, not a problem architect. I don't want to hear problems. But I say I can't do that because he said, well, just say you can do it and raise all what you want to say as a risk. So that's what I did. So one of the things they want me to do a design within 2 days. I say yes, and I raised like 100 risks. I just think of anything, and he said, "Wow, so how long realistically it'll take?" I say at least 2 weeks, and then yeah. So just say in the organization, maybe in situations, maybe you couldn't say no, just say yes, and then ask them to sign off for the risk, and then this might be a good approach. I'm not saying don't say no. Sometimes you should still say no because there are some fundamental like security and shadow IT. You can still say no, but in some of the tricky area, I find that they might want you to say no to take a blame on you because they'll be like, hey, Bing can't do that, so my project can't go ahead, right? So then I get into trouble, escalate to my manager, and that's not a good look. So sometimes you need to sense the dynamic, the power structure, and all of that, and then you'll be able to say, there's another way of saying no, right? Which is not getting you to trouble. Another one, keep calm and be professional, is I really like being an architect. There's 2 things I don't like. One is documentation. I'm really, thanks to Copilot, I don't have to do much. Another one is aggressive stakeholders, which I don't think AI can help in that regard. And also I probably wouldn't, deep in my heart, although I don't really enjoy it, but I think that's probably really keep me employed, because if all the stakeholders get along with each other and they can use AI to do whatever they want, they probably don't really need me. So the fact that they are aggressive, they don't get along with some people, and that's probably where they need architects to add the value and try to make sure they can talk to each other. So yeah, take a breath when you're in that situation, and if you start the fighting, I mean verbally, it's never a good situation. So I learned that the hard way. Yeah, just take a breath. And you can also call to say, hey, I don't think I'm in the position to have this meeting anymore. Can we maybe pause for now and have scheduled another day? And also, what I also learned is, if you know when you going to have a really tough meeting, my experience is you can't facilitate and fight with that aggressive stakeholder at the same time. So bring a friend, bring your manager, bring a BA, or bring a project manager to be the meeting facilitator, so you can focus on the fighting. And when you get kind of started get out of the control, you can your facilitator can kind of stop you before it gets escalated. So yeah, get a friend. Yeah, and I think the most important thing, just take a breath. It's work, and you'll enjoy your life after work, but work is just work. Just be professional. Nobody expects you to have a verbal fight, and there's a professional way of resolving conflict. The last thing is work with stakeholders. I'll give you a bit of time to read. So this is quite a funny, quite a funny thing. Really is engaging with your stakeholder. They will always bring up issues. They will always disagree with you. They will always challenge you. And that's the nature, or that's why they need an architect, right? In a simple company where an owner will make the call, they don't need an architect, right? So the fact they having those issues is a good sign and keep you employed. And really work with them. And in the end, when you're becoming that trusted advisor, it's actually going through, they all say, they're going through that sort of the real sort of war stories, right? So you kind of not only have the project success, you also kind of face the same challenges and failure together. And it is that time when your stakeholders start inviting to meetings that you don't even know exist. So I got a contact center manager to invite me to an operational meeting with the vendor. Like I never know they exist. So it's that time. That takes time. Trust is earned, right? It takes time. Work through with your stakeholders and try to initially not to front up with a template and all of that. Try to make yourself useful to them and try to really solve to them. And later on, then you can start pushing all the template and structure and all the governance process. And through that, you build trust. And trust me, when you build that trust, you'll be working in another level. They truly collaborate with you. They kind of not only they need you because there's a governance process they want to go. They actually need you to have an opinion because they think they really trust you to say you actually provide real value. It will happen. It will take time. So that's my experience. Pretty much that's the end. So that's some of the readings, and you can see How to Win Friends, Influence People that first published in 1936. That's what I mean. Those skills, those are the high-paying, high-value, and long-lasting skills. Because you never seen a tech books that published 20 years ago that are still adding value. Even 10 years ago, I think with AI, maybe 5 years ago, most of the tech books are becoming obsolete. But there are some sort of human skills, the books that published 1936. They're almost going to have a 100-year celebration in probably 10 years of time. Yeah, so this is really the end, the beginning. So one of my virtual mentor, I listened to a lot of his videos. He passed away many years ago, but he has a lot of sort of wisdom. So work hard on yourself, then do on your job. So that's also my sort of personal philosophy. I can't change anything. The only thing I can change is me. So I'm really working hard on myself. I mentioned that my last job was a contract job. I'm kind of in a permanent job now, but everybody knows it's a really tough job market this year. That's why I've been presenting in conferences. I do a lot of podcasts, and probably you see me to go to a lot of meetup and try to talk to people. And the only thing you can change is myself. And if there's, I don't try not to blame the environment. I don't care the other 99 people who didn't get a job, but the only job is there if I can get it, and I just have to work on myself on that. Cool. I think I probably added time. If you want my slides on everything and all the podcasts, this is linked to my blog post that has all the information, slides, my LinkedIn, my podcast, and all the references I have. Anybody? What time? How many time I got?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I can recognize some of the stuff that you talked about because in the past I was a developer for a while and I worked for Statistics New Zealand. Came across weird decisions from a solution architect and decided I could do better and I'll become a solution architect. So I got a job as solution architect for about 1.5 years with Ministry of Education and New Zealand Post and got bored out of my wits. I think the worst thing in the job that I found is writing documents, but you've already addressed that. ChatGPT will probably help there.
Yeah.
And the other one was that you have endless meetings. That your whole day is filled with meetings. You have a feeling that I can't do that because I'm always in meetings. How do you deal with it? Is that your experience as well?
Learn how to say no.
But I guess that's the nature of that role, because we try to influence people, and to in order to do that, we do have to be in the table with them, because those are the decisions getting made. But I guess one of the tips I can share is you don't have to attend every meeting. So once you kind of get into the organization, that's why when I mean the power structure, once you kind of understand like who made the decision, who are the key people, what are the key meetings you need to attend to, the rest of the meeting you can decline. It's not you are working in the environment, you can decline meetings, but probably not on your first 6 months or year, right? You have to build that trust. You have to really understand it, and then later on you can actually decline meeting to say I don't think I can add value to that, or you can, maybe we can have a conversation after the meeting, because at the end of the day you mentioned if we don't control, we don't say no, our calendar will probably get triple booked from 8 o'clock to like 5 o'clock, because they all want us to be there. You for some meeting you can have a conversation with that person, maybe for 5 minutes, to say what you need me and all of that, and maybe you can just turn out for the first 10 minutes or 15 minutes to say, hey, this is where I add value, and then you can just excuse yourself after that 15 minutes. But that, again, that's not for you first started. Once you kind of get to know people and you can control that. So I don't think I answer your question, but that's the nature of the work. You do go to a lot of meetings, you do get into a lot of conversation, and I guess most of the meetings are pretty interesting, that they just talk things and nobody want to make decisions, and at the end of it you kind of, why I waste like 16 minutes in that meeting, but that's the nature of it. But then you can, there are tricks around meeting facilitation, how you can work with different stakeholders to make sure the meeting are productive, and again, right, you can decline meetings, and you need to have a good reason. Like if they escalate it and your managers say why you decline that meeting, you better have a good answer for that. Yeah, I know.
I just went back to becoming a developer. That's another thing I probably should talk is it's a two-way door. It's that's what when a mentor told me, they didn't say you go for a solution architect role. They say you need to go to a leadership role. Leadership, he mentioned, there's two tracks. One is the people leadership, the other is technical leadership. And he explained people leadership is more one way. Once you get on the people leadership, it's very hard to go back to the technical role. But with solution architect, it's a two-way door. It's a technical leadership. Back then, I was like, I like this two-way door. Just in case I like you, maybe I don't like it, I can always go back. Yeah. Any other questions? Hopefully I didn't bore you.
Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
thank you.